It is 9:30, the appointed time for the August meeting of the Wood County Board of Supervisors. I would ask that our supervisors please sign in so the clerk can take the roll. We do have two supervisors who are absent this morning and excused, Supervisor Al Warden and Supervisor Winch. Okay, I think we have everybody up there. At this point in time, I would call on Supervisor Peter Hendler to come forward for the invocation. I would ask the body to rise and then please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to follow. Thank you.
Good morning. Dear Lord, as we come before you at this time, we give thanks for the many blessings thou hast given us. We are thankful that we live in a democracy where we can express our own opinions without the fear and can vote as we choose. Help us today to make our decisions in the best interest of the county and the people we represent. Help us to respect each other's opinion, even though we may not agree. Now we pray for our country and its leaders in these crucial times. We pray especially for the men and women in the military service. We ask that you put your protecting hands on each of them wherever they may be. These things we ask in the Lord's name. Amen.
Please join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. You're probably going to enjoy being in this air-conditioned building by the time we're done with this meeting today. I think summer has finally arrived, at least the second day of it. At this point in time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from the previous session. Motion by Fire, second by Moody. Any discussion on those minutes? All right, seeing no discussion, all in favor of approval, please signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries. Said excusals today, we had two, Supervisor Winch and Supervisor Al Warden. I know I have one excusal for next month. Is there anybody else that knows right now that they need to be excused for next month's meeting?
Oh, I will be.
Supervisor Roser. Okay. Got those. Resignations, we have none today. Appointments, we have none today. Under reappointments, I guess it's been recommended that I be reappointed to the Board of Adjustment for a 3-year term, and I would entertain a motion to that effect. Motion by Supervisor Hendler, second by Supervisor, who do I have here? Murphy, I guess, was the next hand up. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please signify by aye. Opposed? And that carries. Brings us to public comment. I see we have a lot of people here from the public today. If there's anybody who'd like to speak, we would ask you to go to the microphone. We limit those comments to about 3 minutes. But if you would like to comment, you go to the microphone, just identify yourself, and please speak. So is there anyone here from the public who'd like to speak on any issue? Just come on up and to that microphone in the center. State your name, and then the floor is yours.
Good morning. My name is Bruce Dimmick. I'd like to speak on one of the agenda items, particularly with reference to Motion 375. And I'll just read my little blurb here. First of all, can everybody hear me, by the way? Is that okay? Motion 375 should never have been attached to the budget as a rider. When he ran for office, Governor Walker promised the voters of the state of Wisconsin that the budget bill would be free of motions that don't pertain to the budget. Motion 375 clearly does not meet those criteria. Motion 375 is so blatantly overreaching that I doubt it would survive a court challenge. However, it would be better to avoid a court battle if possible. Court battles make lawyers richer and citizen groups like Protect Wood County poorer. By the way, I apologize to any lawyers in the audience for that comment. Let's hope that county boards across the state, as well as other local government entities, take a strong stand against Motion 375, and that the Wisconsin State Legislature responds accordingly. Along that line, Richard J. Stadelman, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Towns Association, has already taken a principled stand against Motion 375. Our state representative, Scott Krug, has taken a stand against Motion 375 and is in the process of assembling a citizens advisory team to develop legislation to address the whole high-capacity well issue. And by the way, Scott's first meeting with the citizens group will be this Friday at 6 o'clock. Scott was also instrumental in developing the compromise that delayed implementation of Motion 375 by 1 year. So we're very gratified for what he did for us. Thank you.
Thank you. See, we have more public comment.
Good morning. My name is Don Easted. I would like to make just two comments. One, I feel as if Motion 375 was drafted pretty quickly, and probably it reflects really undue influence from what you might consider a large ag group. I come from a farming family. Many of the people here support farms. This is not about opposing farms. Our request that you take a position opposing 375. It's really, we all follow the news, and we're seeing more and more the risk to the environment. If you look to the east, if you look at communities around Plainfield and Hancock, you can see what's happened to the water table there. You've read about the Little Plover River and some of the issues there. There's a lot of science behind this. So this is not a move to eliminate farming. This is really an opportunity for your county board to take a stand to protect our environment and to protect the people who vote you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? You're like Bob Barker, come on down.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, move the microphone down.
Thank you. I guess I would just like to piggyback on what some of them has said. I really appreciate the committee for Wood County drafting the resolution. I think that was an amazing step. Kind of shocked me, frankly. But when you look at 375 again as how it was presented into the state budget, there alone is a reason why it should be confronted, you might say, and encouraged to look at more deeply. When you have 70% of residents and 97% of the communities that rely on groundwater for their drinking source, we have to start considering cumulative impacts. And whether this is just a Saratoga issue, obviously it is because of the proposed wells. As the gentleman mentioned earlier, if you look to the east to the counties who share the same water as us, and I have pictures of that. We took a tour of all the lakes out there and all the lakes that went dry, about 15 of them. And, that's our crystal ball to us, is looking to the counties east to us, to seeing how many irrigation wells have gone up just in the last 10 years, let alone 30. And we have a map that shows the increase of high-capacity wells. Now, forget about our issue. Even if you look around the state, people are having groundwater issues. Municipalities are having groundwater problems. Usually when the groundwater diminishes, quality of water also diminishes. So whether municipalities are having to put in treatment centers for nitrates or magnesium or uranium or whatever the issue is, groundwater pumping is a huge issue, and to ignore the cumulative impacts, I think, is very ignorant. I almost want to say that if we're not going to allow studies and let the DNR do their job as professionals and to go out there and take the knowledge that they know and do scientific data, then why are we teaching the scientific method in schools? We should just go to all our schools and say, research doesn't matter. We've always been able to pump, so let's always pump. But Abbotsford, Colby had issues. I don't know if that pipeline ever happened to Wausau or not, but they're having issues. Plover's having issues. A couple years ago, I just read something from the town hall. They're trying to put in municipal wells. They have issues. They can't go to the north because of the granite and the uranium. They can't go to the west past the Wisconsin River because of the swamplands, the bedrock, and the water level. They can't go to the east because of nitrate levels. They can't go to the south because of nitrate levels. And half of their pumps is the old system. They've been shutting them down. They have to plan for water for peak. So they take the average of what they would pump probably in July for everybody's demands and needs, and I think it was like 12 million gallons of water per day, and already they're 1 million short. Okay, so it's an issue.
Could I also just ask you to state your name for the record?
Oh, yes, Gail Kretschmer.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you. So, I would recommend that the board, we're not saying don't put in the 49 high-capacity wells in our area. We're saying we need to start being aware. I have a list of counties across the state that are having water shortages, all the way down to Dodgeville, Rock County. We can go out to the Great Lakes area and look at the issues that they're having there. So this isn't a matter of being biased for us or not. It's just let the professionals do the job and let the DNR hold up to their mission statement of enhancing and protecting our natural resources. And if you're scared of hearing the truth, I'm not scared of hearing the truth. If the DNR can come to me with good research saying, yeah, 49 high-capacity wells around 2,100 homes and 54,000 people, not including Rome and people in Grand Rapids, isn't going to have an effect, I'll celebrate it. But we have research and we have our crystal ball again. Little Plover River, all those lakes to the east. Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else? I've got a couple.
I'm George Bartels, Chairman of the Wood County Conservation Congress Delegation and in the Wood County Wildlife Advisory Committee. And I'm here to hope you can approve the wolf resolution. The last several years I've been a carnivore tracker, and there's wolves all over Wood County. Right behind my house in the township of Cranmore, but whatever. I would just appreciate you thinking about it and approving the resolutions as same as 18 other county boards have already done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Christy Greening, and I'm from the town of Saratoga as well. I'm not going to hit you with a bunch of facts. Many of my counterparts have already done that. What I want to do is dispel some misinformation. Our group here, the Protect Wood County group, is not here just because of Saratoga. This motion 375, once we have started all this research, we have seen statewide the water issues that are occurring in our state. Wisconsin is not a water-rich state any longer. We have seen that. Ms. Kretschmer had, dictated all the different counties that are currently having a problem. We understand that everybody has a right to water. Citizens have a right, businesses have a right, industry and farming. We all have a right to water. Nobody has the right to monopolize that water. And nobody has the right to take away what is stated in our rights as citizens in our Constitution, the right to contest or call upon individuals that are using it in an unfair way. And that is what Motion 375 does. It takes away our rights as citizens. It takes away your rights as citizens to say stop and make our government go back and look at what is happening. Our government was based on the checks and balance system, and Motion 375 takes away those checks and balances, and that is not right.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak under public comment? Okay, if not, thank you very much, and thank you for your participation today. It's going to take us into the, normally would go in the packet. I'm going to do one thing real quick here. We had a couple of referrals that went out to the proper places. Yesterday they had a joint legislative meeting. Supervisors Wagner and Clendenning were both there. I think there's about 45 of these referrals and referrals that ended up being resolutions that are going to the WCA conference in various manners for approval in most cases, it seems. 17, I think they said, from one county, 16 from another, and the balance of those from all the other 70 counties. So I want to thank those two for their participation at that meeting. Normally we'd go into the packet right away, but we have a special order of business this morning. Yeah, I guess I could do that. My clerk is straightening me out here. Under acknowledgments and recognitions, Governor Walker has proclaimed that July 29th of 2013 to be Wood County Public Health Day. Congratulations. I'm sure that's because of a request and because of the work that you have done there and the recognition we've received on a statewide basis. And the other proclamation was declaring August Child Support Awareness Month. So those are the two acknowledgments and recognitions that we had and needed to mention. Back to special order of business. The Marshfield Economic Development Board, normally, I think Jason Angel would probably make this presentation, but Jason's on vacation, so Steve Barkton a pinch hit. And so we can get them back to Marshfield or wherever they want to go next. Maybe he's back on vacation. We have Steve here. We also have Mayor Meyer here. Chris is back there. Raise your hand, Chris, so those people in the back know who you are. We also have him here. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Lance, and thank you to everybody for making time today. We appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what's going on in the Marshfield area with economic development. I believe you heard a kind of similar presentation about what's happening more on the south end of Wood County from our group that we call Reggie, and we're doing work on the north end to try and make it more economically vibrant and just trying to move business forward in the Marshfield area. I've got some handouts of what I'm about to show on the PowerPoint. I'd be glad to leave them with you if anybody wants to get a hard copy. Also, anything I refer to in this presentation, if you'd like a copy of it, let me know, get a hold of me. I've got contact information at the end. Be glad to send that to you electronically or otherwise. Economic development, this latest push in Marshfield actually occurred before I came on board. I started as city administrator in January of 2011, but it was in 2010 that some discussions were occurring about how we do economic development. There were some bumps in the road. There were some conversations between the council and Main Street and the Marshfield Area Chamber of Commerce and Industry and others about who ought to be doing what and how things work together. And out of that, the city decided to commission a study by a group called Verbiker that I'll get to in a minute, with the hopes of trying to look at it in more of a comprehensive way. Economic development, quite honestly, is the most important thing that we do. And most communities in Wisconsin would say that, but it's kind of fragmented. There's a lot of players and a lot of different activities, so coordinating it is not always easy. Here's a list of some of the players that we called into the mix, if you will, as we talked about where to go. You got the Chamber of Commerce, Marshfield Main Street, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Community Development Authority, and others from time to time who all come into this picture of trying to help it become an economically vibrant and successful community. Well, everyone's doing good work, but the idea is how can you pull it all together and get everyone on the same page? Like I said, we commissioned a group called Verbiker out of the Madison area. They're an excellent consultant. They do community and economic development. In this case, we wanted them to look at what we do today. This goes back, 3 years now. What do we do now? How do we do it? How can we make it better? They began with an assessment, as you see here. The first thing that they did was to map our existing organization and how we did economic development. What are the current processes? What's our mission? What are our work plans? Trying to identify areas where we may be overlapping, where two groups are doing the same thing, wasting resources. Maybe gaps where nobody's doing certain things that need to be done. They did a number of stakeholder interviews. They talked to the business community. They had face-to-face conversations with realtors, bankers, all sorts of people who are involved in some way, shape, or form with economic development in the community. What are the needs? What are the things you see? What are we doing well? What are we doing not so well? We looked at benchmarks. What are the best practices out there for doing economic development? It's changed an awful lot in the last, even 10 years, but certainly the last 30 or 40 years. And then they came up with some recommendations. Here's some of the findings that Verbiker came out of this study with, kind of a fresh look. They felt that economic development in general was doing well, that we had good people in some of the key positions, which was nice to hear. They found that there's a trend toward collaboration, which is good because, again, we're not islands. We need to be working together with our partners. They did see some overlap in work plans, which was concerning, that we seem to be kind of traipsing over the same ground from time to time. They saw a lack of private sector funding and kind of a piecemeal type of funding that we were working with. They saw a coordinating body, which was called the Marshfield Economic Development Association, but underutilized, really not doing that comprehensive pulling together of the players the way we'd like. There was some performance benchmarking in infancy, though, needs a lot more development. Some public policy tools like the CDA not being used. Every city, I shouldn't say every city, but a lot of cities across Wisconsin have a community development authority. Just having one doesn't mean that you utilize the state powers of borrowing, of dealing with blight redevelopment, those kind of things. They saw that we did some marketing efforts, but it was disjointed. It was a little bit random and irregular. And then they saw that we really lacked a central vision, a central focus, and a strategic plan to move the community forward. Here are some of the recommendations. They recommended that we formalize the Marshfield Economic Development Association. This group, which had been around for a long time, it has sort of become more of a gathering place where business and community and government leaders get together once a month and talk about what's going on in your sector. You're in the medical sector. You work at the clinic. What's happening there? Good, bad, or otherwise. So we learn a lot, but it's never been a group that takes the reins and goes and charges toward the finish line on a project. They also believe that we should include education, utility, and regional partners in our efforts. What about Marshfield Utilities? What about Synergy doing regional economic development? Are they a part of our plan? Are they a part of what we do? Are we including them in our discussions? They felt we should develop community-wide, outcome-based economic development vision with a strategic planning process, which was badly needed. A couple of other recommendations: to tailor our work plans to maximize our strength and to streamline what we do. And then finally, to broaden the CDA's focus to include redevelopment. Right now, our CDA is working largely in housing, and they do a great job of it. But can we get them a little bit more involved in some of the economic and community development projects we have? Whether it's eliminating blight or redeveloping a part of downtown that's in need. Can we get them into that program as well? This is just to show you all the players and how they work together. You see, it's kind of it doesn't look like it here, but I kind of picture it as a bicycle tire with we need somebody at the center. Their idea was to put meat at the center, to beef up this informal group, make them the driver. After some discussions, we felt that was probably ill-founded. This group was never created to be that kind of committee, but we did agree with them that there needed to be a central hub in the middle of the bicycle tire that coordinated and helped keep everybody moving in the same direction. So we got at it. We formulated a plan for success. You see some of the dates up there. I won't read them all, but in the end, we did create the Economic Development Board. It's a 7-member body. We have 2 council members on the board. We have people from the private sector as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. It came out of this working group you're seeing here where the city staff, council, and some others got together and said, how do we create it? And that's where they ended up getting to March 27th, 2012, the recommendation to council, which was ultimately embraced, to create our first ever Economic Development Board. I got ahead of myself a minute ago. I wanted to get to the exciting part, which is who are the players. The people on the top of this list are the 7 members of the board. As I said, 2 council members who are actually members of this body as well, Ed Wagner and Pete Hendler. And then 5 members of the community at large. We made it clear we wanted to find people in different sectors. We got a banker, we got an agriculture person, we got an education expert, a retired wastewater superintendent, and somebody who is a CFO at one of our major companies. A lot of different skills, people who see things very differently. In some cases, people who don't love government, believe it or not. But they came to the table and said, we want to make economic development vibrant in the city of Marshfield. You see our partners up there too, from Main Street, the CDA, Mackey, Convention and Visitors Bureau, and obviously city staff. We're kind of around the perimeter of the room during the meetings, lending support to the EDB. The action plan, the exciting part. Enough of creating it, enough of passing ordinances. We want to do something, and that's what this group made it clear. We do not want to do something that just ends up getting put on a shelf. We worked with a company called Redevelopment Resources out of Wausau, and they made it clear that they were out of the box. They wanted to take a fresh look at what we did and give us some recommendations. So they did focus group sessions, SWOT analysis, the whole thing. Spent about 4 to 6 months with us. Came up with some goals, a lot of goals. I think about 60 goals. A number that's too hard to get your arms around right away, but really good ideas in the areas of workforce development, project, financing, all those different areas that we wanted to see. And then they came up with some benchmarking and metrics as well. Here are sort of boiling down those 70 recommendations, because I'm not going to read them all to you. Here's what I was starting to name a minute ago. Here are some of the key areas that they said we need to work on. Infrastructure, organizational structure, community partners, by which they mean making better use of and team working with those groups that I mentioned before. Using our economic development funds. We don't have an unlimited source of money. We're not the federal government. We can't print money. But we have some dollars that we can put toward economic development. Are we getting the best bang for our buck when we invest those monies? They saw that as critical. Business retention and expansion, attracting new business to the community. Downtown redevelopment, entrepreneurial redevelopment. A lot of the businesses in cities like Wisconsin Rapids and Marshfield are grown from within by somebody who has an idea. If they can find financing, if they can find a place to start, they can end up being one of these places that has 2 employees, 5 employees, 10 employees, and can be your community's next big employer someday. Workforce development, commercial real estate, housing, and marketing. These were seen as key areas that we need to work on as part of the entire overall economic development picture. Here's some of the priorities. You'll see that they look a lot like the last list, but we're looking at doing a lot of community redevelopment ideas. They picked out parts of the community that they think we could look at trying to enhance and perhaps redevelop. In some cases, as aggressively as maybe you want to look at buying pieces of land when they become available so that we control those parcels, maybe get them cleared and get in some better development. The structure and relationship with our partners. Incubator, workforce development. I'm not going to read this entire list. Housing is a big one. Do we have the proper housing in the various price ranges and the various styles that a company would like to see? The classic model of economic development, and I can say this because I've been around a while, was you just need to give them money and land. Can we give you free land? Can we give you some dollars? And then you'll come to our city. Everything I hear about CEOs and people who are doing site consulting, they're looking for places where there's a high quality of life. There's good housing for the employees. There's things for the spouses and kids to do. It's much more than just free land and payments. It goes into these areas that are listed right here. And one of the big ones I want to call your attention to is number 9, community image. What do we want Marshfield to be known as? How do we want it to be seen? How do we want it to be viewed by those who are looking to move here, to set up businesses here, to just come and visit here for a week? How do they see us? Next steps. The finalizing the 2014 budget, we spend roughly $200,000 thereabouts on economic development programs at the city. What's the best use of those monies? We've got other monies we can spend as well if we need to. We've got an old revolving loan fund that has some dollars left that we can use. But where is the best bang for the buck? I think you're never going to see the city being more intentional than they are in the coming years about making sure that the monies we spend on economic development literally match up with goals and priorities and objectives that we want to attain. Not just, well, here's $30,000 and boy, I hope you do something good with it. We want to see results-oriented investments. Communicating with a local partner. Oh, I'm ahead of myself. Oh, I'm not into high tech. Communicating with our local partner organization boards. We want to work more closely with Main Street and Mackey and CDA and the Convention and Visitors Bureau Board to make sure that our priorities are as aligned with them as reasonably possible. That's one of the elements that a lot of cities fall short on. We want to keep working with Reggie. We've had a couple good discussions with them. They're doing some great stuff starting up here in Wood County. They're a little bit behind us in terms of a timeline for getting that process going, but they've got some great ideas and some really visionary people on board. So we want to keep in contact with them, keep teaming with them where we can. And then we want to get projects off the ground. I have worked in 5 cities in the past nearly 30 years. I'm a longtime government person. I have seen so many plans put on the shelf. We make fun of using them as a doorstop. I've actually seen those plans used as doorstops before. When someone is propping something open to get in and out of a room, it's embarrassing. We made a very firm commitment. This is not going to be a document put on the shelf that we're all proud that we spent money on and then never used. We want to implement as many of those recommendations in a short, medium, and long-term timeline as we reasonably can to get Marshfield going. I'm not saying we're in a bad place now, but these are great ideas, and we want to move them forward. I understand that Jason Angel, our Economic Development Director, made a presentation to SEED Committee a couple weeks ago that was well received. We appreciate that. In that presentation, he was talking about a funding request that's ultimately going to come before this body as you move into your budget process. We would like to think you would look favorably on that. It's a request that we think is reasonable and that will help us do some good things. I'm not here today to ask for money, but I do want you to understand what we do and the value of what we're doing. so that you can put the pieces together at budget process and say, you know what, Marshfield sounded like they had a new vision, some great ideas, and an impetus to push it forward. We want you to look at our request for dollars from Wood County the same way we're looking at requests from the partner organizations and others in Marshfield. Is it prudent? Is it cost effective? Does it move important objectives forward? You know, we're not just asking for a blank check, but we've got some ideas that can really be a real benefit to attracting and retaining quality businesses in our community, and we'd like to see you ultimately partner with us. I think I've got my contact information here. Yes, come on up. Jason Angel does a great job as our Planning and Economic Development Director. He's been there about 4 years. Outstanding, great resource. Feel free to contact him, and you can contact me as well. We'd be glad to discuss the Economic Development Board with you. But we're thrilled. I'm just going to end by saying we're really thrilled by what's happened in the last 3 years. It's aggressive, it's creative, and there's a push behind it that's going to leave it very different than probably previous efforts have been. There's definitely a desire to get things done. Otherwise, I would take any questions, but I thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Supervisor Clendenning.
Do you have border agreements with towns in the Marshfield area?
We have a boundary agreement with the town of McMillan. We had a boundary agreement with the town of Cameron that we've allowed to lapse, but we still have ongoing planning with them. And I think that we see a real value in the city of Marshfield to planning together with our towns, especially those towns that have an expectation of possible urban growth occurring around on the border areas. And even though with the town of Cameron, we're no longer formally in a boundary agreement, you're going to see us continue to talk with them regularly.
Is there anything you want to add, Mayor? No, you're good. How about any of those aldermen that are on city council? You're all good? I mean, I have 3 of you who obviously know the program.
Well, one thing that I want to touch base on is that we have had some really good dialogue going with the Reggie Group. And we understand that we're not competitors, but we're all sort of in this together in all of Wood County. The other thing we are concerned about, and we hope to address, and I think I talked to Trent, I talked to Trent about this a couple of weeks ago, is that we have the Southwood County Center of Interest, and we have a Northwood County Center of Interest. And what we need to somehow or another, as a county, address the balance of the county, for lack of a better term. We've got to talk about Auburndale. We've got to talk about Hewitt. We've got to talk about Millador. We've got to talk about how we can help them in their economic development efforts too, because some of the funds that the funds that are being allocated toward Reggie and to EDB, which we hope will become EDA. There is legislation out there that to create a statewide ability for cities to create an economic development authority as opposed to a community development authority. But the local funds that are used to drive those efforts, unfortunately, are very geographically centered. They can't go anywhere else. And we feel that leaves the rest of the county out. But we want the rest of the county to come along with this, because as the county prospers, so do each one of us individually. So that's what we want to pay attention to. But I just want you to know that I'm very encouraged about the conversations and dialogues we've had with Reggie, and we are also very cognizant about the balance of the county.
Steve?
Yeah, if I could just add to that and wrap up, that's a good point that Ed made. And economic development is a team game. It's a team game. We value our relationships with Wisconsin Rapids, with Wood County and others. And I think as we go forward, you're going to see more and more of that, where we have to cooperate. We have to work together as a team. If Wisconsin Rapids gets the company that we're fighting for, it's still good for all of us. I've heard the mayor say this more than a couple times. It brings money, it brings jobs, the need for housing to this area. So I think this is all part of a coordinated movement to try and be more of a team concept, whether it's us with our own entities like Main Street and the Chamber of Commerce, or whether it's us with the City of Wisconsin Rapids, Wood County, and others. We all have to be working on this together. There's still 7% unemployment. There's still needs for more good quality businesses in our communities. So I look forward to working with Wood County in the future.
Any other questions? No, Steve, thank you very much for coming in and making the presentation. Thank you, Mayor, for coming.
And I will
also.
leave this in case
And there are
anybody wants.
copies up here if anybody would like hard copy
Thank you.
of that presentation. Again, thanks. We're going to go into the packet here, start through that, and then when we get to the the HERC committee minutes, we'll go to the annual parks report. So at this point, we are on page 9 of the packet. It's the executive committee minutes from Friday, July 12th. That's page 9. Their minutes from August 6th on 10, 11, and 12. Maintenance monthly comments from 13. The finance department on 14 and 15. Systems on 16, 17. Safety and risk management on 18. Comments from the county clerk on 19. And that brings us to the first resolution in your packet.
This will be Resolution 13-8-1 to cancel stale dated checks as recommended by the auditors. Said checks from county general account as per office of the county treasurer. Fiscal note, as per resolution, total to be canceled, $685.13.
Motion by Hendler, second by Roser. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? I'd ask you to please vote. That resolution passed unanimously. Thank you. Page 23 in your packet, a second resolution from the Executive Committee, and I would ask the clerk to please read that resolution.
This will be Resolution 13-8-2 to accept offer of sale of tax deeded property. Fiscal note, offered amount of $6,000 minus real estate taxes, special charges, publication fees, and abstracting fees for a gain of $1,684.48.
And I had a motion by Minor and a second by Wagner. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Any discussion? Please vote. Again, that resolution passed 17-0 unanimously. Page 25 of your packet, minutes of the Health and Human Services Committee of July 22nd, as well as 26. Page 27, minutes of the Veteran Service Commission of June 4th, as well as page 28. Community Care of Central Wisconsin, their board meeting minutes from June 26th on 29, 30, and 31. We have North Central Community Action minutes of July 8th on page 32 and 33. Supervisor Roser.
I wonder if it would be wise, going back to the CCCW minutes, to explain a little bit about the expansion of the CCCW and talking about these extra 16 counties that Community Care of Central Wisconsin is going to work with the state of giving oversight. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know that we've had this organization that originally started with Wood County, Portage, and Marathon. And then about a year and a half ago, we added Lincoln and Langlade. And then there were 16 counties in northern Wisconsin who did not have a family managed care organization. And so CCCW put a proposal in requesting that they become the oversight for family care for those additional 16 counties. And the state has given them permission now to move forward with putting a proposal together. So this organization may end up being a rather large oversight organization in the near future.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Supervisor Pollak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions on that, but as long as we're going back, can we go back on that page 23 on the resolution? On the sale of the property in the town of Saratoga, for the people here in the audience, could we have a better description where it's located, please?
Trent, I don't know if you have, the legal description is actually listed right there.
Oh, it is, but not everybody has, no, I'm sure most people don't have a copy of this, and they have just a general idea where it is.
That would be on Mink Trail off in Z. It's
Dauphin County.
Terry, why don't you go up to a microphone so he can hear you, if you would, please?
That's on Mink Trail, which is just off in Highway County Z there, just before 73.
Thank you, Town Chairman Rickaby. Got that right from the source.
Mr.
All right.
Chairman, if I may. Yeah, and please understand that we're not keeping that information from you just to be obstinate. It's because a lot of these places are, and I don't know if this one is or not, and Terry can probably, but a lot of these are vacant lots. They don't have addresses. I mean, so all you have is a legal description to go by, which is on every tax document that gets, that comes out of the county. So that's why the description is the way it is. But yeah, a lot of these places are just vacant land that don't have addresses.
Okay. All right, back to, I think we're on page 31, probably, somewhere around there.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Oh, sorry, Supervisor Hendler.
I just want to, what Donna Rosa was saying about the CCW, I believe those RFPs are going to be due at the next meeting. And this thing is going to be discussed thoroughly at that time because it is a gigantic step. And I think, I don't know if Donna is, but I'm certainly concerned about the fact that when something gets that big, is it still going to be effective? So I think we'll give you, this county, a read on what's happening in that particular meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. And, I certainly trust you guys going forward to have the best interests of our county in mind. This would be one of the larger, not the largest, I don't think, but one of the larger managed care organizations within the state. So appreciate that, Peter. All right, page 32, any questions there? 33, any questions? The Health Department's report from July 22nd on 34, 35. The Veteran Service Officers report on 36 and 37. The report from Edgewater Haven on 38. On page 39, you have the State of Wisconsin Department of Health Services, some information there, as well as 40, and this also ties into some resolutions we'll deal with as we go forward here today. Is there any questions on those pages up to 40? Okay, at page 41, we have a resolution in the packet from the Health and Human Services, as well as the Executive Committee.
This will be Resolution 13-8-3 to amend the 2013 budget for Veterans Relief with a transfer of available appropriations from fund balance. Fiscal note, no additional cost to Wood County. The additional appropriations needed in the Veterans Relief account is available in a non-lapsing fund balance, and the adjustment to the budget totals $1,000.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. I have a motion by Fire, a second by Hokamp. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, please vote. Again, that resolution passed 17-0. The clerk gets set here. We have another resolution, page 43, also from Health and Human Services and the Executive Committee.
This will be Resolution 13-8-4 to amend the 2013 budget for Human Services Department for transfer of 2012 carryover funds from the general fund for capital purchases. Fiscal note, Human Services Department had $27,400 of unexpended capital funds in calendar year 2012.
Okay, I have a motion by Hendler, a second by Fire. Is there any discussion on this resolution? With no discussion, I'd ask you to vote. Again, that resolution passed unanimously, 17-0. Page 45 in your packets, minutes of the Seed Committee from Wednesday, August 7th. Page 46 is the same, as well as 47, 48. Starting on page 49 and going to page 53 are various comments from people in the UW Extension offices, leading off with Pete Manley's comments there, and those go 49 through 53. I'll give you a chance to go through those and see if anybody has any questions. Starting on page 54, Conservation, Education, and Economic Development Committee's monthly report from Jerry Stork in the Land Conservation Office. That's 54, 55, and 56. Starting on page 57, we have the comments from our Planning and Zoning Office under the direction of Gary Popelka, and those go 57 through 61. So give us a minute to go through those again, 57, 58, 60 through 61. Page 63 in your packet is minutes of the Judicial and Legislative Committee of July 16th. Their meeting from July 17th on page 64 and 65. The attendance sheets from that meeting on 66 and 67. Supervisor Clendenning.
I'd like to make a couple comments about the meeting yesterday that was held up at the airport, CWA, in which it was a very good meeting. It was the resolutions, 45 resolutions are going to be presented to the conference. And we are going to hold a legislative meeting on the 6th of September at 10 o'clock in the auditorium here. Legislators said they will be present. I've talked to several of them. So we'll be going over, and Cindy has indicated that she'll be sending out these electronically to department heads and supervisors to go over with your comments, and so we can give direction to our county board chair, Lance Primmel. Another thing that was brought up through the counties association being there was the fact that the 70-mile-an-hour speed limit is thinking to be increased. It would probably roughly take about 2 years to do that. And the legislators, the state legislators, were looking for comments from the counties. So if you have any comments on that, please send them to our legislative committee, and we'll get back to our legislators on, what people think of the 70-mile-per-hour speed limit. We had some federal representatives there, their staff, and what they asked about was our state legislators ask our federal legislators to, hold back on federal mandates. And of course, counties were there, counties were there. We're asking the state to hold back on mandates. And when we just discussed that property in the town of Saratoga, that's going back for a tax deed, basically. It's what's happening throughout with municipalities, including towns, villages, and cities. It's when you come on contaminated property or having to bulldoze down a building or a factory or something, they will bulldoze that down, the town will or the city, and then they'll charge the person on their tax bill. Then the people won't pay their taxes. And then guess who pays for that? It's the county pays for that. So when you're raising buildings, that's a way that this is starting to cost the counties a lot of money in the state. So
Thanks.
Some of the highlights of the meeting.
Thank you, Bill, for the update. That kind of dovetails into the Joint Legislative Committee. That was the meeting yesterday. In your packet on page 68, 69, you have their minutes from June 10th. We have a number of pages from Corp Counsel Kastenholz on pages 70, 71, 72, and I think we had, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we had a dismissal or of the Hudak case and total completion of that at this point. So job well done on that one, because that's one where the county had there was the possibility, at least based on the numbers that were put forth, that there could be some significant liability there, and did an outstanding job on that one. Thank you. Wood County Child Support report, their monthly report from July 17th on page 73. There's a notice of injury and claim on page 74. And then page 75 is a resolution from the Judicial and Legislative Committee. The reason all the green shirts are in the back of the room, and they've waited for this resolution to come forth, and I would ask the clerk to please read that.
This will be Resolution 13.
I'm sorry, got one more after that. Yep, next one.
This will be Resolution 13-8-5 to encourage the legislature to vote against Assembly Bill 85 and Senate Bill 95. No fiscal note.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had both those laying on my desk at the same time here. All right, a motion by, who do I have here? Murphy, and a second by Moody. Okay, do we have any discussion on this resolution? Page 75, the resolution just read. Any discussion?
Lance.
Supervisor Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wonder the appropriateness of this resolution, considering it's already been signed into law. I just wonder about the appropriateness and the timing of it, and I would certainly look to Bill in that.
Yes.
Supervisor Clendenning.
Yes, we had much discussion on this resolution, and as a member of the committee brought the resolution, wanted the resolution on it. My personal feeling of it is that I like to pick my own fights. I don't like to fight for other municipalities in the county, Milwaukee County. Milwaukee County budget, from my information and research on it, just their county board budget is $6 million. You know, ours is probably half of that. It's really not, but I think somebody should be watching it. And of course, they have I think they're full-time supervisors, and they're considered. But yes, I did really think that, you know, we should pick our own fights.
Supervisor Nelson.
Contrary to what was just said, is we got to look beyond our nose, I guess is the proper phrase on that. And when you look at this resolution, you go down to the whereas, the third, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth whereas, and right on the bottom is it would create a precedent that could be used to strip other counties of local control. And if we don't look forward, we pass something today, what could happen tomorrow or the month or year down the road? If we put the blocks to it at the beginning, we don't have to go through all this mess and fighting it later on.
Supervisor Mahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the theory behind this resolution by the county, but I have to agree with Vice Chairman Minor on this. I think it's we're a little late to the table on this one. Speaking of going forward, we should have taken care of this before the budget was signed, because that's where it was taken care of, I believe. And by passing this in any way, shape, or form, I think it may make our county board look a bit foolish. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Lance.
Supervisor Minor.
If I may have one more shot, I'd appreciate it. And it's the general premise of it. Milwaukee County operates by a different set of rules than the other 71 counties. I mean, you just thumb through the statutes, and it's except Milwaukee County, or Milwaukee County does this. There is nobody, well, there may be a couple in this room that are more actively involved in local control. I mean, when you sit on a town board or a city council, there isn't one of us that doesn't believe in local control. But I'm sorry, were you expecting the Foxes to clean up their own hen house? That probably wasn't going to happen. Was there action needed by the state? Was it appropriate? I don't know, but Milwaukee County, I think something had to happen there. So I will not be supporting this resolution.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Anybody else? Okay, if not, please vote. And that resolution failed. It was 11-6, I guess. What do we have? Yeah, 11-6. So thank you very much. Now we get to the resolution that I jumped the gun on before. Page 77 of your packet, and I would ask the clerk to please read the resolution.
This will be Resolution 13-8-6. To encourage the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to provide a more complete and accurate method of assessing the impact of high-capacity wells so that the permitting process may be done in a manner that will adequately protect Wisconsin's surface and groundwaters for the use of all. Fiscal note, nothing direct to the county. Damages to the tax base of Wood County by high-capacity wells is speculative but potentially huge.
I have a motion by Clendenning, a second by Moody. Discussion on this resolution. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Supervisor Clendenning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I come from Waushara County, town of Oasis. I was assessor there for 22 years. And in August 9th, in the Fond du Lac Reporter, this is 9 pages of that particular area that I was assessor in. talks about Long Lake in the pictures. Somebody held up one of the pictures, almost next door to where my sister lives, by Long Lake. There's no water there now. I was involved in 1962. I moved to the town of 64. I moved to the town of Oasis. I lived there all my life, but I lived in Portage County for a while. But then I moved back to there, and I lived on the corner of an irrigation field. And I know what high-capacity wells. I was 183 feet to water, and I had nitrates in my water, pesticides. Pesticides due to the fact that well closures in the 1970s were not like they are now. But if you ever went into the Plainfield truck stop, the one on the south side, Plainfield truck stop there had a sign up, pregnant women and children under 12, please do not drink the water because of the nitrates. And that was all due to high-capacity wells. They start out at 36 inches. Some of these wells start out at 36 inches, going down as far as 200 feet or until they hit rock. And then due to the sand, it's called the Plainfield loam sand, these pipes wear out, and then they get down to about 18 inches, and then they have to put in a new well. I think it's important that we have specialists look at these things and not just put them in anywhere. The reason this was delayed for 1 year, and July 1st it'll take effect, is the fact that Pleasant Lake, which borders Coloma, which is in Waushara County, and this is in the town of Preston, I believe. They're high-capacity wells, and yes, it is a CAFO farm too. That court case is still pending, but if anybody wants, I got a copy of this, and I'm going to vote for this. Thank you.
Other discussion on this resolution? Any other discussion? Okay. Oh, Supervisor Wagner.
Thank you. As this subject came up, I was reminded, I had to go back and look it up because my memory isn't as good as it used to be. But I remembered reading many years ago a book by a guy by the name of Ben Logan called The Land Remembers. You remember that, Hildy? Right? Yes. Yes. And basically, it was talking about growing up on a small dairy farm in southwestern Wisconsin. And one of the vignettes in there was a story about how some of the farms during the 30s and the 40s, how some of the farms down there in the southwestern part of the county or the state their wells started going dry. Remember that? And they started going dry because guess what was happening up in the central part of the state? And dairy farming was starting to take off. Basically, the lesson for that wasn't anti-dairy farming. The lesson was be careful what you do because as far as the aquifer and the water supply for the entire state is concerned, it's all interrelated and it's all connected. And I think to not look at the facts and not look at the long-term effect of what you're doing is foolhardy. I really do. In that book, that book was written so we learned that the land does indeed remember what we do. And that's a lesson we should have taken back as far as 1975 when that book was written. And if we ignore that lesson today, we're the ones who are being foolish. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wagner. Any other discussion on this? Supervisor Ashbeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wondering how this thing got originated to start with here. And I sympathize with my people from town of Saratoga. But at the same time, when I turn around, look at the public comment in the back of the room, I didn't see any T-shirts with high-capacity wells on. I grew up on a dairy farm. I lived off the dairy cow. We loved the dairy cows, and I made my living off of them. And when I see these people wearing shirts with a red circle against my Holstein cow, it makes me upset. And it wasn't me for that, I probably support this today, but if that's what this is coming to, Wood County is based on the dairy industry. Can they walk around the courthouse with shirts like that with these circles around my favorite Holstein cow? Thank you.
Supervisor Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I mirror what Supervisor Wagner says, that you really have to look at this. There's no harm in just, having the professionals, like the one lady said, look at these subjects. But really the reason I wanted to comment was, when Lance and I sit up here, we get a different perspective. There's two young ladies back there that have been nothing but congenial. If you go to the back of turn your attention to the back of the room, there's two young ladies sitting right against the wall back there. And they have been outstanding for sitting here for an hour listening to us blather on and on. So my compliments to the parents or grandparents of those two young ladies that are sitting back there. I think that's outstanding. They probably behave better than some of the supervisors in this room. So my compliments to them, but I will be supporting this resolution.
And you see how the process works. Appreciate that. Is there any other discussion on the resolution? Any other discussion? All right, I ask you to please vote. Al, yours isn't confirmed yet. That resolution passed 16-1. Thank you for the vote. I want to thank everybody, too, that came in today as part of public comment. In the packet, we are on page 79, Highway Infrastructure and Recreation Committee. Page 79, any questions there? Their meeting of July 10th, as well as 80, 81, 82. The HERC Committee from August 1st on 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. Various reports from the employees within those departments, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, current project updates, 93, 94, construction supervisor's report on 95, 96, the director Chad Schooley's report on 97, and 98, forest administrator's report for July. And by the way, I highlighted that number. It's looking pretty good again on 99 on our forestry revenues. And then that brings us to the first resolution from that committee, and that is on page 101. I would ask the clerk to please read the resolution.
This will be Resolution 13-8-7 to support a statewide wolf population management goal of 350 animals or less.
Okay, I have a motion by Murphy, a second by Bry, and I know I'm going to have an amendment to this resolution is brought forth, so Supervisor Mahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like to make a motion to amend this resolution by striking the words "or less" from behind 350 animals. I realize that the wolf population needs to be managed and probably aggressive. I just do not like the ambiguity of "or less" when it comes to threshold wildlife populations.
Supervisor Clendenning seconds that amendment to the resolution. Discussion on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? And the amendment is to just strike the language that says "or less." It's to have a target goal of 350 animals. Is that correct, Supervisor Mahan? Yes. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Should we get the board set for this? Okay. Okay. We're voting on the amendment then, and the motion made by Supervisor Mahan, seconded by Supervisor Clendenning. Supervisor there we go. Okay, and that item passed 12-5. So we have an amended resolution going forward. And the resolution just, as going forward, just strikes that "or less" language. Is there any discussion on the resolution as amended? Supervisor Roser.
What is it with the magic number of 350? I guess I just would like to have a little history about who came up with 350 and why is that such a magic number?
It was the DNR's original target number. and the population has reached, in some cases, they're thinking in excess of 1,000, but that was a DNR original target number for what they had recommended. If somebody has more information, Supervisor Mahan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that number came about by several organizations actually doing studies previously to the delisting of the wolves, and it had to do with a number that the habitat could sustain as well as how they interacted with the human population density in certain areas.
Okay. All right, so Supervisor Henkel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am supporting this resolution. George is not the only person who has had a wolf in their backyard, and if a wolf appears in Rudolph in your backyard, there's a pretty good population of them out there.
I'm going to tell a story.
Well, let me go to Supervisor Hokamp, then to Vice Chairman Minor.
Thank you. Along with Hildy's at Rudolph, Wisconsin Rapids on 25th Avenue, we have a family of wolves living there. It's right in the city, and I don't know this 350 is going to take care of anyone's that are living in the city. I'm very concerned about the wolf population.
Trent.
Yeah, okay, District 8 probably has more wolves in its population than certainly residents. I firmly believe that, or at least in the town of Hiles. I've told this story before, and everybody's probably sick of hearing it, but there was a wolf that was actually feeding, it was a yearling male, was feeding out of a dog dish out of one of our neighbors' backyard, who's just about a mile down the road from me, feeding out of the neighbor's dog dish. So they did the pyrotechnics, and they tried to scare the thing away. Well, the little thing got hit on the road, and within an hour, the DNR had snapped it up, and they came and got it. Apparently, this wolf had been collared. So they came and got it, and if you ever get a chance to go into the Pittsville High School, you'll see him stuffed, sitting in a showcase. And I have no problem with that. And stuff all you want. And I just could not support the 350, because to be honest, I wouldn't mind seeing it go less than that, just because of the depredation issues that I think are coming for Wood County.
Supervisor Clendenning.
Just a little humor. I think we're glad we got the dangerous animal ordinance in the county.
Any further discussion? Supervisor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this resolution with this, with the changes that were made in here, is this going to have to be changed? Because it basically says the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources established this, and now we've actually changed it.
We're not establishing anything, we're just making a recommendation. So they can establish what they want. Our recommendation is 350 is a target number. So I don't think there's anything that needs to be changed from our perspective.
Yeah, I understand it's a recommendation, but, okay, no problem.
I mean, unless I'm wrong, and I've been wrong way more than once. Anybody else have any input on that? Okay. Any other discussion? All right, please vote. There we go. That resolution passed 15-2. Aging Disability Resource Center of Central Wisconsin, Finance Committee minutes of June 13th on 103. The Aging Disability Resource Center meeting of June 13th, their amended minutes on 104, 105. Their Finance Committee meeting from June 11th on 106. On July 11th, we have an additional meeting of the Aging Disability Resource Center of Central Wisconsin, as well as 108. Any questions on the ADRC? Any questions on the ADRC? Brings us to the Central Wisconsin State Fair Board minutes of July 15th on 109, 110, 111. Minutes of the Board of the Marshfield Fairgrounds Commission, July 17th on 112. I'm just going to wrap these up because we're going quick, and then we'll go to you, Chad. We're so close to the end of this packet. Any questions there? Do I have anybody here who wants to make any comments on the upcoming fair? Supervisor Fire.
I
think everybody should bring their money, bring their appetites, and come to the fair. If you like really good fried food, it's probably the best. It's probably the best area that you can get. It's not good for most of our diets, but it's a great fair. I would like to announce that the Fair Commission has accomplished their goal is to get the expo building done. It's been completely painted. The lights should be hung as I would think today or tomorrow. You have to come and see this addition to the building. Those 98 windows did a great thing for that building. Now that we won't have to turn the lights on at all, we'll be able to save electricity. And we spent good money, good county money and city money on a great project, and we're glad that we were allowed to do it. Thank you.
Thanks. Certainly do encourage everybody's attendance at the fair. It's a great event up there. Supervisor Clendenning?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And maybe Chad will include it in his report about September 14th and what's going on at Lake Wazeecha, in which you know about. So I'd like him to bring that up.
Okay. I'll go to, at this point, minutes of the McMillan Memorial Library Board of Trustees of June 19th. Any questions there on 113 or 114? South Central Library System minutes on 115 and 116. All right, that's the packet. Now, Chad, since we're on a roll there, we'll bring you up. We have our report. It'll be done by Chad Schooley. It's a special order of business. That was supposed to be done following their minutes, but we were on a roll there. I thought we might as well get through that since we'd had one special order already. This is the Park and Forestry Annual Report.
All right, thank you. Now that my whole audience is almost gone, we've got about half the audience now. So basically what I'm going to do today is just go over the 2012 annual report. All the supervisors would have received a hard copy last month, so you had a good chance to review it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Just wanted to put that report into pictures a little bit to show you some of the projects that we've been doing. As you can see, 2012 was our 77th year as the Parks Department, one shape or form. Just go over our mission statement. Basically, this is what we try and adhere to when we come up with our annual work plan, as well as just our day-to-day operations. Our mission statement is to develop, maintain, and operate facilities, resources, and programs that meet the outdoor recreation, environmental, and economic needs of the public and provide clean, safe, quality family enjoyment at a reasonable cost. Some of the speakers that we had today really highlighted some of the importance of protecting our natural resources, as well as developing them when it comes to economic development. Our Park and Forestry Department plays a large role in that protection within Wood County. It's becoming more and more important with a lot of the previously open properties and lands within Wood County that was open to the public, now being more privatized or being shut off for those purposes. So our Park and Forestry Department is really becoming more important over the years. This is just a data sheet, and it was derived from the Department of Tourism from the state. And as you can see, the highlighted portion there, this is the total tourism impacts, and it shows in millions of dollars the direct visitor spending, and it goes by county. So for Wood County in 2012, you can see there were $77.9 million spent by visitors coming to Wood County. Wood County Parks and Forestry is a large player in that. You know, obviously we have a lot of the natural resources, a lot of the facilities where outside visitors come and have their different functions throughout the year. So not only natural resource protection, but also a large driver for the economic industry in Wood County. This is just kind of kudos to all those individuals on our staff that make things happen on a day-to-day basis. It shows our full-time staff, as well as, doesn't show by name, but we have several different seasonal employees throughout the year as well. Some of the events that go on throughout the year. We host a variety of large events as well as small events. We have the triathlon, a couple different Kiwanis youth organization events out at our parks, several walk runs for different benefits and things like that. We also host different fisheries. Obviously in the wintertime, our parks are those entrance ways to the different lakes throughout the county. Jeremiah's Crossing was actually an event held this last weekend out at our Dexter County Park, a fundraising event, car show. As Bill mentioned, not only do we have the State Water Ski Show annually, there's also an event coming up September 14th. They are going to attempt a world record for a pyramid out at Lake Wazeecha, and the host site is going to be our new pavilion area at Red Sands Beach. So that event's taken place in the past, although it was not a record-breaking event. It's actually a distance. They have to get so many people up and travel so far within the lake itself. So, one of the hubs, or one of the several hubs for these larger events, are our shelter buildings. Over the course of the last few years, 2005 is when we had our NEPCO shelter completed up here. This past year was the completion date of our Red Sands Beach Open Pavilion, and that obviously is the site where the State Water Ski Show is held every year. But that's just a real small portion of what's going on out there on a daily basis. The open shelter is open for all park users whenever they come out there. Besides the kitchen area, that's only for reserved functions, but that building is reservable May 1st through the end of the season, October 31st. And so far, we've had a lot of good reception, a lot of reservations for that shelter building. A lot of the other buildings, the upper left-hand corner is our Northwood County Park. A lot of those buildings are older. You know, some of them were built in the 1940s, 1950s. So updating is kind of not a constant thing, but as you can see, we put a new roof on within the last few years. We're going with metal roofing throughout the parks here. Updating septics. A lot of the septics are old. You know, windows, plumbing, all that stuff, electrical. It served its purpose back in the day, but with the increased use and things like that, we're doing a lot of updates on those buildings. This is just a summary of our shelter building reservations. As you can see, in 2012, there were 307 different shelter reservations throughout the different parks that we have. And on the bottom, you can see a chart just showing the last 3 years. So 307 was quite good for us. It was an increase of over 30 reservations. This time of year, camping is very big for our department. This is just in-house, kind of shows the breakdown of how reservations are made. A few years ago, we went to a online system that people could reserve sites basically 24/7 throughout the day. And so that's just a breakdown of the different ways people are reserving campsites. This is a pretty interesting graph, and this is pretty common. Since I've been doing these reports, it's pretty close to 50% every year. And this is the breakdown of who are our campers. Basically, it's typically pretty close to 50% in-house as far as Wood County residents camping, and the other 50% are out of Wood County. So a fair amount of people coming into our county for that purpose. And this is just a summary of the past 3 years of camping unit nights within our campgrounds. Last year was an excellent year, just about 1,000 camping unit nights more than the prior year. I think some of that had to do with although it was a drought, which was bad for a lot of farmers, things like that, It actually helped us out quite a bit because of the self-registrations. A lot of people midweek decide if they're going to camp for that weekend or not. And with the lack of rain in the forecast, that actually helped us out quite a bit for self-registrations. Our boat landings obviously are very active throughout the summer months. We have the several water bodies that we maintain boat landings on. We do have 3 paid boat landings. Basically, people do have to pay to park at those landings. They may launch their boat without paying. Basically, they're paying for the convenience of that parking lot and the maintenance of the parking lot. Last year, we did complete, most of it was complete prior to 2012, but we did complete the NEPCO boat landing rehab project. That basically included grinding the existing parking lot, reshaping, putting a layer of blacktop on, putting a boat washdown station, some new lighting, new docks, things like that. So there are obviously expenses to maintaining those areas. 2012 Powers Bluff. The numbers may be somewhat deceiving here because we have to go back, not this winter, but the prior winter, which we had very little snow. So that's why these numbers are going to reflect that. This past year was excellent because of the long season we had, but 2012, this is a summary of our cross-country ski trail passes. As you can see, it's quite low, 110 total tickets sold. I'm not sure how many actual days were open for skiing, but it wasn't very many that season. And again, Powers Bluff, because of the lack of snowmaking equipment, we do rely on Mother Nature, and she wasn't very friendly that winter. So we only had 1,053 tickets sold. We're only open actually two weekends that winter. Just some of the projects that we completed in 2012. Northwood County Park, we put in a fuel station at that location. Prior to that, a lot of our fueling was either going to Marshfield to the highway shop or going into Pittsville to the Senex station there. So this obviously saves us a lot of commuting back and forth to receive fuel. We have it delivered out to the location now. And then the bottom pictures are just transplanting that we do throughout the parks every year. We try and get some more shade trees in there. This year, Dexterville will need a lot of shade trees planted. And I'll show you a little bit of that coming up too. Dexter County Park, we're very proud of this project. It turned out great. We put a second shower building in between second and third loop. This building was also had a few unique designs. We designed the front portion. As you can see, this is a laundry room. We've got a washer dryer in there as well as some concessions, just vending machines. And there's also a couple handicap accessible bathrooms in the front portion. Those have a nice wide open area with the toilet, the shower, sink area. But that whole front area can be separated from the main bathroom with the showers. And the purpose being is we design it as such where we can actually heat that front portion. This is the only campground that we maintain open through the gun deer season. So a lot of times we'd have to plumb or flush out all the water, the plumbing systems prior to deer season, obviously, because end of October is when it starts getting freeze up. So this is the only building on our, I guess, shower building in our fleet that we can heat and keep open for those late season campers as well as hunters. And we're hoping to attract more and more because of the locality of Dexter Park, very close to a lot of public area for hunting purposes. Southwood County Park is one of the main areas. I think this is the only park, Dexter might have one, where we're seeing more and more requests for memorial benches. We like it in-house, obviously, because we get a very fine quality bench, and they're concrete benches. They're going to last a lot longer than I'm going to be around, pending any trees coming down on them. And it's also nice for those individuals. Basically, the program we have is I just have the interested parties contact me. We kind of pick out a spot that works best for our trail system or our parks, and we have a pretty common design that we go with as well. So we kind of work with them. The individuals do purchase the benches and they donate it to our department. We pour the pad, the concrete pad in-house, and we do charge back the cost of the concrete, but the actual labor is just a part of the package. I mentioned the new pavilion at our Red Sands Beach area at Southwood County Park. Again, a lot of good reviews and a lot of reservations thus far. With the increasing demand on electricity in our campgrounds, we continue to upgrade all of our electrical sites. This year, second loop at Southwood County Park received an upgrade to 50 amp pedestals versus the old 20 amp that were in there. The bottom picture was actually a Eagle Scout project. You can't really see it, but Devin Cook from the Rapids area scraped down and repainted the ranger station at our Wazeecha campground. And Nepco County Park, couple projects that we did. Basically, we've had different trail systems at Nepco in the past. We obviously have our hiking / cross-country ski trail that we maintain. Or actually, in the winter months, we have a local ski club maintained for us and track. But we also have had a lot of interest in mountain biking as well as snowshoeing in the winter months. There had been existing trails in there, but the county really never managed those trails. It was just kind of a group going out and making their own trail with their bikes. So we finally put out signs so people not familiar with that trail system can go out there without getting too lost. So another project at Nepco was an addition to our newer shelter building at Nepco. One of the things that we always seem to find after the fact of construction is we're always lacking some storage space. And this was one of the very big needs at the shelter. In the past, all the chair racks and the table racks and the coat racks always stayed in that main shelter area, and people would pull them out into the snow or pull them out into the rain, and just wasn't a real good setup. So this past year we added on a wing just for that purpose of storage. It's worked out very good. This is our lower ski shack at Powers Bluff. Again, there was an existing building at that location. It was quite outdated and in need of repair and replacement, so we basically replaced that unit. It's got a lot more window. There's windows on all four sides, so the attendant down there can view, for safety reasons, view all around them. Powers Bluff, a very large project, accomplishment for our department. Back in July of 2012 is when that land trade was completed, basically for County Forest in exchange for the park property north of Powers Bluff. Just an update on that, all the buildings are gone now. One of the projects, and it worked out great, several different volunteer fire departments, including ARPAN, they kind of spearheaded it, came to me and wanted to utilize these buildings. There's a house as well as a barn, some other outbuildings. They wanted to utilize these buildings for the purpose of training, and it worked out great. They actually, we went through the permit process, and they came in, and I think there were over 100 volunteer fire department members that came out and actually took part in the training burn. So, as I said, that whole site is now cleaned up. There's a silo still on site. There's a poured silo. Reason we did not take that down is we're kind of contemplating on different ideas as far as use of that silo. Obviously not for silage purpose, but different purposes. So, our plan is to, on that site, actually create a small parking lot, and hopefully have that done. We will have that done prior to hunting season this year. This 223 acres is open for hunting. The existing park that it joins up with, the 160 acres, is not. But until we start doing more development, we felt that, it's a great resource for people around that area to utilize for hunting purposes. So we're looking at putting a parking lot so people can get off Highway N and park and walk in. Kind of transitioning into our county forest aspect. Obviously, county forest, a lot of times we just look at the numbers, you know, how much money are we receiving off of these properties, but there's so much more. You know, natural resources, wildlife habitat, recreation. There's a lot of different attributes to our county forest acreage than just the numbers. So this is just a few pictures of some of the wildlife and flora on there. This was a hot topic. This is actually a wolf pup. Hot topic just a few minutes ago. And again, just the different natural resources within our county forests. 2012, every year we put out bids, obviously, for tracts of land. This is the summary for 2012. We had 857 acres that was bid out to be cut for a total bid value of $562,000. Obviously, that's not a bid one year, get it done the next year. As you're aware, timber processing has a lot of variables, weather dependent, somewhat market dependent. So this isn't actually, you know, we bid it out and receive those monies that year or the next year. Typically, we have a 2-year bid contract with those cutters. So in 2012, basically every time we harvest on county forest, at the end of the year, 10% of those revenues go back to the townships that those lands are located in. So this is just a summary of the different townships and what they received the 10% of revenue last year. Now, what's it cost us to run our department? A lot of times that's what people ask, you know, is it self-sufficient? It's not self-sufficient. We require, or we are allotted tax levy dollars every year. We do receive a lot of revenue, but it costs to maintain these areas, you know, manpower, different facilities, things like that. So this is just a brief snapshot, and if you look at the lower left-hand corner, that's what it cost taxpayers of Wood County to operate our department last year. $467,456. In comparison to the previous 2 years, that was a very good number. A lot of that had to dry winter. Our loggers could get into a lot of areas that typically they would not have been able to get in besides frozen conditions. So it just worked out great. Also, like I mentioned, camping, our other park revenues were excellent last year as well. So that's why you see the lower than average dollar amount for tax levy. So, okay, this is just a summary of where exactly those revenues come from on the parks end as well as the timber harvest end. Last year, obviously, the big ticket player was the timber revenue. 56% of our revenues came from that. Typically, the second largest would be our camping operations. That's a large revenue generator as well. Same thing, just in a different format, comparing 2011 to 2012 revenues. As you can see, the total for 2012 was $905,000. Prior year was $650,000. So there was a very large jump in revenues. All this we could not do without volunteers as well. Like I mentioned, we have our full-time staff, our seasonal, but there's a fair amount of volunteers and clubs that we work with. Kiwanis Club, like I mentioned, they have a few different events out at our parks as far as winter and summer Kiwanis Club events, outdoor days. There are 8 snowmobile clubs that we work with. They're the people that do all the trail maintenance throughout the county. You know, we're just kind of the middle person. We contact the DNR, we do the paperwork as far as reimbursement, but the actual hands-on work is done by volunteers from these 8 different snowmobile clubs. Central Wisconsin ATV Riders, that's the group that takes care and maintains our ATV area out on Highway 54. Aqua skiers, not only do they have events, but they also assisted last year. They did all the installation of the tongue and groove in our new pavilion at Red Sands Beach. River City's Nordic Ski Club, like I mentioned, that's the club that actually maintains the NEPCO ski trail throughout the wintertime. Several Boy Scouts, Eagle Scouts, different projects throughout the year. And last year, the Pittsville Lions Club, they actually donated half of the County Conservation Fund grant. Every year, Wood County is eligible for dollars to improve wildlife, waterways, things like that. Last year, Pittsville Lions actually donated the 50% matching for 300 northern that were released in Dexter Lake. And those northerns were about 12 to 16 inch range. So it was a great contribution to our department as well as to the general public, whoever fishes out at Dexterville. Just a picture of the walk bridge at Northwood County Park. There's one other thing I wanted to mention here. Oh, September 14th, I already mentioned that as far as the pyramid out at Wazeecha. So, had to look back. Our final slide here is just one of our biggest supporters that we have in the Parks Department. And some of you have seen this at the Towns Association meeting, but it was just after trying out one of our newest playground equipment. And there he is. He did very well. So.
Let me tell you, those things are safe too, by the way. It's been weight tested, so it's all good now, thanks.
So that's what I have. I guess, are there any questions, comments? Oh yeah, I always forget that. I've got a little video here I'll show you I took right after the windstorm that came through Dexterville.
While he's getting that up, I'll just quickly mention too, with those volunteer groups, and one that Bill wanted me to mention before, we host the largest water ski tournament in the world in Wood County. Over almost 2,000 participants, upwards of 20,000 spectators every year, and it's free. So I encourage those people to go. I encourage you to go to the fair too, but I spoke at the Grand Rapids town meeting the other day through the permit with the Parks Department here and with Grand Rapids. When they talk about a water ski pyramid, Evinrude and Mercury, the two big manufacturers of motors, have been in competition basically for who can pull the most stuff. They're going to attempt to do 70 people up behind one 900 horsepower boat, and if you can imagine that, that's several miles of rope. And the ad for Evinrude is the power of Evinrude, and it's the town of Grand Rapids and South Wood County Park in every ad they do. So we get a lot of public relations out of it, which dovetails perfectly into the mess we had out at Dexterville after the straight line wins the other day.
Yeah, this is what, well, I shouldn't say we saw. Basically, this occurred a couple weeks ago. It was on a Tuesday evening, as I'm sure you're all aware of, but it was very localized. This is our first loop at Dexter County Park. We ended up losing hundreds of trees. We didn't do an actual count, but between the uprooted trees, busted off trees that just we had to take down for safety purposes, it was a mess. Our guys and gals did an awesome job. We were only closed for one weekend. We reopened last weekend with only 2 sites that were still down, and those will be up for this upcoming weekend. But it looks a lot different. If you're familiar with the first loop, you won't even recognize it anymore. So just my hats off. Yeah, fortunately, like I said, it was on a Tuesday evening. We had 5 campers in the first loop. No personal damage. Nobody got injured. We lost, or they lost a couple canopies. One vehicle had some damage, but other than that, it was a miracle. I mean, if we would have been full on a weekend, there would have been a lot of injury and damage. So thank God for that. So, yeah, this is pretty long, so I'll cut it off, but you get a good idea of what it looked like. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Chad, on your presentation on the PowerPoint, can you go back to that, please, and go to the first slide?
Yes.
Thank you. One thing that was mentioned, Chad did bring this to the Towns Association meeting on Friday, and that big pyramid they're talking about, the water ski pyramid, Clendenning is going to be on top of it, they said. This is the word on the street is Supervisor Clendenning is going to be on the top of that pyramid. So,
Just like to say something about that, that's also the day of my choose to reuse in the town of Grand Rapids.
You're just going to dovetail into that.
I'm going to dovetail into that new logo the Parks Department is using. I'm thrilled to see that the departments are starting to use that Wood County logo, and I applaud Chad for that, but that looks sharp. I encourage all the departments in the county to use that logo. That's what it's there for. We spent money on it, and it's a sharp-looking logo. Also, and all this is wasted because Winch isn't here, but understand, yes, the parks are incumbent on tax levy. It's an investment. Steve Barg's presentation today talked about Economic Development Board priorities. Recreational opportunities ranks right in there, and this is what the Wood County can provide towards economic development. So it's an economic development tool as well.
Thanks, Chad. Any questions of Chad? Anybody have anything? All right, I'll quickly make one announcement here. I got a call this morning. Bill Clendenning has been named by Scott Krug, state representative, to sit on that, I don't know exact title, the advisory committee for the water task force, whatever you want to call it, which is going to look at that high cap well situation. And I got a call from Representative Krug this morning. Next meeting is set for September 17th. In between that, between then and now, make sure you go to the fair. Is there anything else that needs to come before the board? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn by Nelson, second by Bry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.